While China and Russia technically have not entered direct military confrontation with the U.S. over the Venezuelan blockade and everything else that's going there, they've already started making moves that make me draw pause. Speaking of drawing pause, let me pause and tell you that I'm going to be drinking a little bit of Huck right here. Haven't had, this is the Flores Bellas, excuse me. Jacking that all up. This was roasted on December 12th, and some good stuff, man. So I use drinktrade.com. Shout out to them. They're not sponsoring, but I've been using them for like 3 years to get my coffee beans. A lot of you guys ask when I make these coffee videos, where do I get my crap from? That is it right there. China, Russia, not directly sending military, they're not sending vessels out to unman or stop the blockade that we're doing down in Venezuela, but they are definitely doing diplomatic moves, which does let me know that things are starting to move a little bit, and they've entered the fray when it comes to just their own type of intervention when it comes to us in Venezuela. Here's the thing. When someone's standing on top of something that you want, you make them the enemy so that you can get it. At least that's what China and Russia believe that we're doing. Venezuela is sitting on top of something that we want, minerals and that oil, baby. And so the situation has escalated, in my opinion, to a major geopolitical standoff at the United Nations and at the high seas, both at the same time. And that's where I think could quickly grow out of control. We're not even out of the first full year of this administration. We've had so many things happen that I think that we need to kind of sum up and think about this as we enter 2026. So let's talk about first the diplomatic situation that's going on between the countries themselves. One moment, please. December 23rd, 2025, the diplomatic situation progressively became more escalated. So here's the thing. Russia and China forced an emergency session of the UN Security Council to condemn the U.S. naval blockades. I know a lot of people don't really understand the purpose of NATO or the UN or anything like that, but you got to remember, prior to 1913, every country was to each his own. Little countries were getting swallowed up by bigger countries. There was not free trade. The Pacific Rim was not a thing. There was just not open dialogue between countries, free trading of goods across the world. None of that stuff existed. It led to World War I, eventually led to World War II. And after World War II, we came up with these things that kind of would help smaller countries from being sucked up by bigger countries, i.e. NATO and the UN. And we decided that it was more important that the world conduct trade, the world communicate with one another, than just to play big boy on the block, be the bully on the block and do whatever the hell you want. That is why countries have the ability to call emergency sessions of the United Nations, because we want that to happen. We want a United Nations. We want the ability to say that one country may or may not be violating the rights or international laws of another country. That's why we conduct things a certain way at seas, i.e. the Bella One. For several days, we chased the Bella One, and I'm going to get back to the UN emergency session here in a second. For several days, we, as in our Coast Guard, chased the Bella One. We initially approached the Bella One. Look at that compact action there, looking pretty good. Just nice and compact. We chased the Bella One. We attempted to board. They literally turned around and they fled. And we had to wait for special operations. It's to my understanding that we now have seized that vessel, at least from the last bit of news that I saw about it. And that does say a lot to our abilities to put together special co-op teams and all that other type of stuff and just make different things happen. But that is the third vessel in coming out of Venezuela that we have put sanctions on in the past, that whether it was through court order or through any other means, we've seized the vessel. And I think that's all that Russia and China needed in order to proceed to what happened next. December 23rd, as I mentioned earlier, the emergency session for the UN. So they call that session, and basically it's an attempt to get a vote to condemn the U.S. naval blockades that we have put on in the Caribbean and specifically in the Atlantic. So Russia, the ambassador, labeled the U.S. actions as cowboy-like conduct in state piracy. At least that's their words, that's their opinion. Moscow has officially reaffirmed its support for Maduro, warning that the blockade could destabilize all of Latin America. That's their opinion. So that's what Russia came. And then China, Beijing specifically accused the U.S. of unilateral bullying and violating international maritime law. So the blockade, the seizing of vessels, they're saying that we violated maritime law. They pointed out that the seizure of ships like the Centuries, which we did a couple of weeks ago, which was China bound, by the way, sets a dangerous precedent for global trade. I just mentioned the importance of global trade, how it didn't exist before 1913, how seizing things that are conducting global trade could lead us back to prior to World War I. So these are things that they're trying to warn about. And beyond just Russia and China, we also have to think about Iran, who's not as official as Russia and China, as in, i.e., they're forcing sessions and forcing votes in the UN Security Council, but they are doing things that may seem tit for tat. Speaking of tit for tat, take a look at that. Oh my God, the creamer looking fantastic. Shot of espresso, making your boy feel good in life. The thing is that literally on December 24th, the IRGC seized a foreign tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, and the move was widely seen as a tit for tat action. They said that that tanker had been conducting illegal actions, and this is the start of it. When some countries see us doing a blockade, regardless if it's justified or not, some other countries will decide, hey, I can do that too. And that seems to be what possibly could be happening when it comes to Iran doing that. And where does it stop from there? Do we now see Russian submarines starting to seize vessels that are supposed to not be moving a certain way? Or we're going to see China doing the same thing? A lot of this oil that is being seized so far was, it was literally kind of for China, and China has been accused of participating in a shadow fleet, and they've been doing things to get oil to them. They want us to get money to Venezuela. They've been doing stuff like ship to ship transfers. So if a ship's being tracked, they can use merchant mariners or their version of merchant mariners in that country and literally transferring money from one ship to another so that it can successfully get into the ports of Venezuela, because the U.S. may be tracking one vessel. Same thing with like oil, flying different flags, a lot of different shadow fleet type of stuff that China's being accused of doing. That's one thing that we have to worry about. Now we have the UN portion of it. And then on top of all that, we're still literally doing stuff in the region, such as we just up the number of special operators in the area that can do elite missions in the country itself. We're now considering a highly respected special operations commander in the Marine Corps to take over U.S. Southern Command, which, I mean, I'm a Marine, so if that were to be the thing, then hell yeah. Speaking of hell yeah, bro, that shit right there. So we're completely ramping up. Seems to be we sent more Pegasus refueling vehicles, KC-130s, more F-35 Alphas to Puerto Rico, into different islands. I was reading a story where after a long abandoned, nearly 50-year abandonment of prop planes by the U.S. Air Force, we're thinking about bringing that back. Literally vessels or birds the size of KC-130s that can land directly in the ocean. Prop planes. That could be serious business, because if that's true, if it's rumored that we went from renting or trying out commercial vessels and outfitting them to become military aircrafts, that could be a big thing, because for us to decide we're going to go back to prop planes means that this Western Hemisphere thing is just starting. We're just beginning. And the Greenland, wanting to take over Greenland for national security purposes, the the Canada wanting to take over Canada for national security purposes. Those could be real things. Let's table all of that, because the reason I brought you to this video is because of almost 1 calendar year ago, some big things happen when people are distracted. Right now, people are distracted. The crazy thing is that whenever people take off of work, whenever people are celebrating with their family in the holidays, that is when a lot of things begin to stir. And I want to bring these to your attention just to make sure that you're always preparing yourself and being vigilant. So December 31st, we had a lot of kinetic activity going on. In January 1st, 2025, we had a lot of stuff going on. I started the year off, unfortunately, with videos that talked about, this is before the inauguration of President Trump, all the chaos that was going on. The biggest ones I wanted to talk about was significant attack in Las Vegas and New Orleans. Now, the New Orleans Bourbon Street attack. In the early morning, literally around 03:15 Central Standard Time, a mass casualty event happened during New Year's celebrations. So specifically, I'm not going to name the dirtbag, but he was a 42-year-old Army vet from Texas. He drove an F-150 Lightning, it's an electronic pickup truck, into a dense crowd on Bourbon Street. 14 people were killed, 57 people were injured. In the aftermath, the vehicle came to a halt. He immediately got out. I'm not sure if he had an AR or if he had a pistol or if he had a shotgun, but he immediately began to do a shootout with the New Orleans Police Department, where he was fatally shot by officers, and that came to an end. The motive behind that, later discovered by the FBI, was an ISIS flag in a vehicle, classified as an incident of terrorism inspired by Islamic extremism. A lone wolf. We still don't know if he was activated. That's something that DHS and FBI would know. But look at everything that's around that. Before we even talk about Vegas, look at everything that's around that that's ISIS related that we're doing right now. We just conducted ISIS related strikes in northern Nigeria, near Niger. They're freaking pissed off and revoked our visas. Oh, mom, cancel my vacation to Niger. We got strikes going on in Mali. We have strikes that we just conducted in Syria in retaliation for taking down 2 of our soldiers and 1 of our American translators. And we are touching ISIS where they live. We're bringing the pain to them. Do you not think it's a reasonable assumption that come this major upcoming holiday, there could be a similar attack? I ask you to be vigilant. If you don't have to necessarily go celebrate the New Year's celebration, then don't. Last year we threw a party. This year we may or may not go out. If we go out, I'm going places where I'm allowed to bring a weapon. I know where the exits are. Hopefully no one can drive a vehicle. You know, we're not going to be in an outdoor space or anything like that. So it's a lower likelihood of a vehicular incident. But I still don't want to live life just confined and not worried about living life and enjoying things with the wife. So those are just things to think about. ISIS inspired attacks, thinking about that, that's something that 100% can happen. Speaking of something else that happened on that day as well, was the Las Vegas Trump International Hotel incident. This happened literally about 5 hours later, the same day, about 0840 Pacific Standard Time. A second vehicle related incident occurred in Nevada. And the thing is that the attack. So once again, not going to say that dirtbag's name. He's a 37-year-old Army Master Sergeant, parked a rented Tesla Cybertruck in front of the Trump International Hotel. The truck was loaded with a whole lot of gas canisters and fireworks. And apparently he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and he lit the truck on fire. The truck took out a bunch of windows in front of the tower. It destroyed the Cybertruck, which coincidentally kind of seemed to be like I don't know, that was a prelude, because, you know, literally weeks later we got Doge and Elon Musk and Trump working highly close together. And you see Elon Musk's vehicle and the Trump Tower or the Trump International Hotel all being symbolism. Is that the thing? Is that the reason? I don't know. But one thing that we do know is 7 people were injured by the blast. 1 fatality was the perpetrator. So the FBI initially found no direct link, no definitive link between New Orleans and Las Vegas. They noted that both men served at Fort Bragg and in Afghanistan, but that's about it. So there's a lot of similarities. Both used vehicles, both were Army vets, both were in Afghanistan, both were in North Carolina at Fort Bragg, but they don't control where they get stationed. You don't control if you get deployed. The vehicle thing is just when you're a lone wolf. I guess that's what you decide to do. I don't know. So, but they weren't directly linked to one another. So was the Vegas thing ISIS inspired? The evidence that I'm seeing coming from the FBI is no. I have no proof of it, but I think that the Vegas thing was more politically inspired than ISIS inspired. I mean, look what the hell I just said when the Cybertruck mixed with the Trump. But that's just something to think about. Now, there are other notable attacks that happened on that day. They just didn't make as much news, but it's still something that you need to think about. And I'll kind of go over a few of them. But even beyond those few, just being able to pay big attention to yourself. Another one is in Montenegro. A mass shooting occurred where 12 people were killed and four others were injured before the perpetrator unalived himself. Didn't hear about that. Wasn't in America, but hey, still another one. In Germany, in Berlin specifically, a man attempted a random knife attack on a sidewalk, resulting in several injuries. Then there was a bunch of accidents that you need to think about as well, like in Honolulu. There was a garage caught on fire from a bunch of fireworks. A bunch of people were injured. It is the celebration of New Year, so just be cautious when you're using fireworks. But beyond all of that, there was a lot of DDoS attacks, attacks on ransomware, attacks on businesses, specifically DeepSeek, an AI service, reported being targeted by a large-scale DDoS attack, malware impersonations, such as DeepSeeks, deepfakes on New Orleans on New Year's Day. Here's the thing: whenever major holidays come, the day before and the day after, people take paid time off, PTO. People are not working. Sometimes the ship is just not being completely watched like it should be normally. I don't necessarily get too worried about the DDoS attacks for myself. I personally use Or, which is today's video sponsor, to kind of protect myself, all 5 of my kids, my wife, my household, the deed to my house. That's the type of stuff I use it for. So keeping all 5 of my kids, my name, my wife's, our name, our birth date, our social security numbers, pop it up on the gray web or dark web and being sold to the highest bidder. They're always constantly searching to make sure that we're not on there. VPNs on every single one of my computers, in my phones, to ensure that we have protection as we surf and browse the internet. We also have the ability to try to prevent DDoS attacks here at the house, keep us online and keep us working as well. The biggest thing is that these data brokers selling that information as before. My goal at the beginning of 2025 was to reduce the headache of random data brokers always hitting us up, trying to sell us some stuff or trying to scam us with some crap, or help me out with that tremendously. Literally, this has been the best year personally of my life since they've gotten better. They're being the data broker scumbags of being removed from those lists, or goes out, see if you're on those lists, and constantly request for your removal, proof of your removal, and then they check to see if you've been added to new lists, because ultimately you will be, because they are data brokers. I like that type of stuff. I like to know that they're searching to see if my email is being used anywhere randomly, if I have any jeopardy of my passwords. All that makes life just that much better. Check out Or down below for a 14-day trial. See if you're going to like it. See if you want to use it. I've been using them for years. Shout out to Or for sponsoring today's video. But that's how you protect your own bubble. So continue to enjoy the holidays. Enjoy everything that we have coming up, everything that we're doing. But don't go completely complacent. Don't completely just forget your prep. Forget everything that we thought about and everything that you do throughout the new year. We're going to get back to some feel-good videos soon. I know you got a lot of gift cards and stuff for Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And I'll give you some suggestions on what to spend that dinero on. But before any of that, let's just make sure that you're safe and you're always conducting yourself with the most vigilance as possible. I'm also concerned about weather events, other type of events that can affect SHTF, especially as we enter an election year for the midterms. But more to come on that type of stuff. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.